Hello, everyone. Good afternoon, good evening, everyone. We played that video twice just in case you missed it the first time. Thank you very much for joining in. As always, extremely grateful, extremely supportive. Uh, just give me a second for having you here today. The topic today is something that I'm sure every one of you has been hearing about. There's been AI summits, leadership conclaves, Instagram reels, LinkedIn posts. Everybody's talking about agentic AI. Our topic for the webinar today also is about that subject, agentic AI, hype, hope, or headache. Once again, thank you very much for joining. We are extremely grateful. So let me set some context, right? I mean, you've obviously been hearing about agentic AI everywhere you go. We've reached probably a point where you can run away, but you can't hide anymore from agentic AI. So, given the subject of today's, the webinar, let me talk about the hype, hope, and the headache. So let's talk about hype first, right? AI will replace HR, fully autonomous HR departments, zero human decision making, AI-led performance ratings. That's the kind of hype that we're hearing about AI. Honestly, at the risk of sounding cynical, I personally believe that we're far away from all of that, right? I think we're very far away from AI replacing HR or even AI-led performance ratings. Now let's talk about the hope. Uh, that's where we're hearing stuff about reducing repetitive admin work, proactive attrition prediction models, data-backed HR decisions, personalized onboarding experience. And honestly, those are areas that we are very hopeful about. At AceNgage, we are building an attrition prediction model. In fact, we already built one and we're testing out certain clients. So that piece, I think, a lot of organizations are making some good inroads, and that's something that we're actually seeing good results. Lastly, let me come to the headache, right? Bias, you're hearing a lot about that. Hallucination, we heard, and there's tons of stories around that. Data privacy, a huge challenge that people are talking about. With a lot of over automation also comes dehumanization. So which means when there's more automation, you'll have less human centric kind of responses, etc. Accountability is obviously low. Employee trust erosion is something that we're hearing about constantly with increase of AI being used. And lastly, there is surely a certain sense of resistance in terms of adaptability. So that's the areas that are probably giving us headache today. So I'm hoping that over the next 1 hour, we will be able to touch upon the hope, hype, and the headache. Have got an extremely interesting panel out there today. Go ahead, grab your coffee, keep the questions coming in. We have exciting rewards for interesting questions. So yeah, get comfortable, and we will start with the Q&A very soon. So before we introduce everybody else, I'd like to start by inviting somebody who's obviously very close to my heart, Ashna, a colleague and co-founder. I mean, I've obviously got a lot of things that I can say about her, but if there's one thing that I'd always remember is the fact that Ashna has been listening to employees very intently, and she's somebody who's extremely passionate about listening as a quality much before it even became a buzzword. So with that, over to you, Ashna, and welcome to the webinar.
Thank you, Krish. Thank you very much. Good evening, everybody. Happy to be here today. We've got panelists from ZOZO So before I go into individual introductions, let me first introduce ZOZO to all of you. ZOZO helps companies reward, engage, and retain people who matter the most, be it employees, customers, sales teams, or channel partners. It does this by combining rewards, incentives, loyalty, and engagement into the smartest SaaS suite available today, which is being used in over 175 countries. From meaningful gifts to global marketplaces and AI-powered personalization, it's all about making everyday work moments feel celebrated, rewarded, and connected. So that's ZOZO for you. From ZOZO we have two key stakeholders today. I have with me Mallikarjun, who's the product expert. We also have with us Manoj Agarwal, who's the founder. A short note about both of them. Mallikarjun is the rare product leader who sort of genuinely enjoys being in that messy middle, right? Where customers' needs are loud, solutions aren't obvious, customers want more than what they can explain and expect. However, having spent more than a decade, close to a decade at ZOZO he's been deeply involved in building products from ideas, especially across employee engagement, rewards, and gamification. What stands out about Mallikarjun is his ability to listen deeply, ask uncomfortable but necessary questions to make sure that the business chaos is translated into clean, usable product decisions. He's worked closely with customers, sales, engineering. Anybody who's going to ask a question saying, is the product going to do it? Trust me, Mallikarjun would have worked with them to make sure that the product does. So that's Mallikarjun for you. Welcome to this discussion, Mallikarjun. Looking forward to your insights on this one.
Thanks for the
I'm
great intro.
really excited to introduce Manoj Agarwal to all of you, founder at ZOZO. Manoj is someone who blends startup hustle with deep thinking. And I think that combination shows up beautifully in how ZOZO has been built over the last 13 plus years. He's been at the center of creating fintech SaaS products that powers rewards, incentives, payouts, and loyalty programs for companies across industries and across geographies. What really sets Manoj apart is his perspective. He talks about experience not as years on paper, but as judgment earned, knowing what will break before it breaks, knowing what scale means, when it really kicks in. If you've ever read his posts, you will know that he has a knack for turning everyday observations into sharp business insights. Looking forward to hearing some of those over the next 1 hour, Manoj. Welcome to this discussion.
Thanks, Ashna.
Thanks, Ashna, and welcome once again, Manoj Mallikarjun. So let's start. So Manoj, my first question to you, right? So you're a legend in your own right. You scale ZOZO, thousands of clients, 20 countries from what I've heard. And obviously at this kind of scale, you must be realizing that, collecting feedback is an operational challenge. So now with surveys, we've always heard about, poorer response rates, etc., etc. So now when we start using agentic AI, especially for automation, things like the survey triggers, reminders, etc. What, in your opinion, actually improves response rate? Is it to do with considering that response rate is a key goal and a KRA? Would How does that improve? Is it smarter automation, or is it the questionnaire itself being more relevant? Which do you think is, effectively more important?
Yeah, Krish. So thanks for this question. So every company dealing with surveys is always trying to optimize the response rates.
Right.
And response rates is a combination of multiple factors. Some of the factors which are very important when you design a survey is the timing of the survey has to be right. The survey has to be easy to kind of respond to. The survey should be secure and trustful, that I as a user should be trusting the survey to reply.
Right.
And it should it should show some impact, that okay, post filling this survey, can I expect some impact? So all
Sure.
this put together along with the relevance makes the response rates. Now uh, automation is something which is important to solve the problem of, let's say, maybe timing and ease, but
Mm-hmm.
that's just 20% of what a survey is. The
Sure.
majority of a survey is largely about the relevance of the survey, that okay, am I asking the relevant question at the right context?
Mm-hmm.
And if the survey has the relevant questions at the right context, automation takes a backseat. I mean, automation is important, but automation is just an enabler to the
Right.
relevance.
Right.
So I would say that the agents, I mean the AI and the agents, they solve both the problems. I mean, they automate things and they can also bring contextual relevance. But
Mm-hmm.
companies like us who are designing surveys, let's say AceNgage and XOXO Day, uh, we should focus upon how we can make the survey more and more relevant, and then use AI to kind of make it easy for people to use, which is the automation part.
Got
So
it.
yeah, I think relevance takes better score than automation.
Sure. No, I'm glad you said that. I think that is something that we resonate with. We are obviously, and you're aware, we spend a lot of time. In fact, our go-to, while I think you've built a great survey engine at AceNgage, we always talk about how building the questionnaire itself is a key component of, a good and mature survey. So, in your opinion, what is that increase can we expect, Manoj, in terms of response rates? What is it at? What is it at currently, and where should we be ideally looking at from a score or a percentage?
See, if you can give relevant questions to the
Mhm.
respondent, unless the
Right.
respondent is really into some mess, people
Uh,
will love to respond, because
right.
uh, just like when you are interacting with your mobile phone on any social feed, I mean,
Right.
you interact with the social feed as long as it is interesting to you, right? Similarly, as long as the questions are relevant and contextual to you,
Right.
you typically respond to them. So I'm assuming that the response rate would be as good as 30 to 40% better if the relevance is improved.
Oh, fantastic. That's
Yeah.
nice. And I think the other point, and I think we probably will touch upon that a little later. I love the fact that you spoke about how response rates typically will grow with time, especially when employees have the confidence that somebody is looking at it and is going to address this, right? And I think that's a significant necessity for any surveys to kind of be successful, and for people to want to respond in the future also, because otherwise, because typically these surveys happen repeatedly over periods of time, and if I don't have the confidence that somebody's going to be working on this feedback, there's no need for me to respond, even if the survey is built well and you have great automation, right? So I think that's an important point that you brought about. Thank you so much, Manoj. Malik, yeah, so I mean, I love talking to product guys, right? Because it's an area that I'm not necessarily great at. So it's always a pleasure to have you. Absolute pleasure. And I'm sure it's going to be a great learning experience. So you've obviously built, a lot of HR tech products, from concept to enterprise adoption. I'm sure you've done a lot of employee engagement platforms. So from a product lens, right, Malik, and it would be great if you could just explain to us, what does an ideal agentic AI idiot proof it for us, please? Because a bunch of here are may not necessarily be experts like you. So when you look at a ideal agentic AI workflow, from survey collection to insight generation and to actually closure of actions, what should that workflow ideally look like?
Correct. Yeah. So I think you'll have to look at this, or I mean, I would take a historical view of how things have evolved to be able to answer
Right.
this, right?
Sure.
So even before computers, the feedback process was mostly sampling. So you pick up a
Mostly
representative group and it's a
sampling. Yes.
sampling
Okay.
process.
Right.
Yeah. So they tell what the whole organization feels, and it had its own limitations. And then, like,
Right.
when computers came in, like, everyone started filling forms, right? And that becomes a survey mechanism. So sampling was out, and then everyone is answering, and your response rates kick in, and so on. So it means you are getting feedback from almost everyone. So which is okay. This is great, right? Earlier I was had to rely on very small group. Now I'm relying on whole organization staying together. Now, according to the technologies available at that point, no one questioned that, like, everyone is answering the same thing. Everyone has to take a same path when they are answering these questions. At times, it might not be relevant for them as well. And a form has its own limitations also. So when you show a form with, like, blank response, people have a urge to fill it in, or they are scared that, okay, I don't want to miss out on this, right? It might at times might not be a genuine way of doing that, right?
Sure.
Now, so these are limitations of that day, right? We did not question those because those are the known limitations for us. Now, this agentic way of doing things changes this. It's like having a new HR team member who does not have bandwidth limitations, who does not have scheduling conflicts, right? And above all that, that agent has context of almost every information about the employee. So the
Nice.
agents can be connected to your HRIS systems, your performance management systems, your rewards recognition systems, your,
Right.
like, CRM, and so on, right? You can link to the results employees are driving, or the nature of conversations people are having, right? Even the emails that people send across. So
Wow.
there are patterns to it. So the agent becomes more and more a smart HR, who knows what questions to ask, when to ask, and so on, right? So with this dynamic, the whole process changes. It's not just going to be one thing at a time. So the point of asking questions to people becomes more contextual. And when do you ask these questions to people also becomes more contextual. So let's say there's a continued absence of an employee. I think the agent would recognize this pattern and, like, nudge employee to answer, like, what's the problem, and, like, address those concerns of that.
Right.
Let's say if this is validated, it starts repeating over and over again with a greater level of confidence. So this is where, like, you start working as a real human, observing, having an observant eye on all people in the organization. Now, even that this becomes like, okay, you are more contextual. It's not like one time you're asking everyone. So the next process also changes. Rather than you having to wait for 2 weeks to consolidate all the feedback and then generate a response, or a summary of what people are saying, this becomes real time filling also. So one feedback comes in, your dashboard gets renewed. So you have a new way of looking at the response, right? And then action planning also becomes very proactive rather than being reactive.
Right.
So the from the point of employee sharing that feedback to the point of having HR planning actions. So traditionally, we can say that it's been, like, at least a week, or in most cases
More.
it's
Yeah.
more. Now it becomes like a day or so. So you are very close to the employee. So there's also, it's felt by the employee if you are responding to the same day or the next day that, okay, this is a problem that I flagged and it's being looked into. That kind of brings in more people to participate in, and it can drive better results that way. So it's no longer a straightforward process. It's more real time. It's more personalized. So the agentic way of doing things unlocks that. So I would say that's the possibility that we are looking at, and I think this process will improve over time also. Like it becomes furthermore better as we proceed with the agentic way of doing things.
Wow. So that's fantastic. So what you're saying is that you will, the information is real time, but I think more importantly, the part that you said about how it can speak to various data sets, right? Like attendance records, leave, I don't know, right? All of that. I think that's what would be the real strength, because otherwise we normally look at scores in isolation. So if somebody's saying, are you happy with the quality of feedback that you're receiving from your manager? It doesn't necessarily talk to the performance rating because we're looking at that in isolation. But what you are saying is it can be linked to various aspects, so you're kind of getting a more holistic picture. That'll be cool.
There is multi-layered connects across the entire data systems that is available, and an overall context for that individual, which I think is the true strength, right?
Right. No, that's superb. Manoj, you want to add anything, given that this is your new baby?
No, I think Malik covered most of it, but yes, I mean, I think data connectivity across workflows which we use across the company, and then real time in the context feedback and surveys that will become the reality in the next few months or years. Yes.
Yeah. No, this is exciting for sure. This is really exciting. But thank you very much. I think Manoj, I think Malik, I think you kind of explained that really clearly, and thank you very much. Even I learned something new today. Thank you very much. Ashna, over to you. AceNgage has conducted close to 700,000 exit interviews. I know we recently celebrated that landmark number. We've always taken pride in how, by virtue of the method that we do it, it's telephonic, so it's not tick in the box, it's not a form, none of that. It's actually listening to what employees say, so on and so forth. And that's how we've traditionally done the kind of work that we've done at AceNgage. We also know that when you compare, while there are pros and cons of every method of feedback capture, we know that traditional web surveys do not have the kind of insight that a telephonic interview would be able to capture. Now, given that we are also, entering the entire agentic AI space, and we're also looking at creating agentic AI surveys, etc., etc. Do you think, realistically speaking, that gap between what a telephonic survey can do versus what a web survey can do, realistically speaking, can that gap be bridged? And yeah, without any bias, Ashna, I know which way you're tilted, so yeah, hopefully without any bias.
Correct. No, there is no bias. We use both too, right? I mean, while we do surveys and we do listening conversations. So without that bias, your question has two parts, and I'll answer it in two parts, Krish. First of all,
Right.
the gap that exists between traditional surveys and listening conversations, right? Firstly, real feedback versus recorded feedback. Surveys usually have recorded feedbacks. Conversations have real feedback, right? There is more emotions that are captured in a conversation. Emotions are generally not captured in surveys. Secondly, there is specific micro behaviors that can come out in a conversation. The micro behaviors usually are missed during a structured survey sort of an approach that you take. Thirdly, triggers that come out in a conversation, difficult to identify those as part of a survey. So what a survey will tell you is how many are unhappy, how many are dissatisfied. Conversation will tell you why they are unhappy, why they are dissatisfied. And the next question, right? Will AI bridge this gap? I think it will bridge it beautifully, because what will now happen is, repeating some of what Mallikarjun said, it will now allow us to personalize context, question, conversation to the individual. Two, it will identify themes, patterns across multiple layers, right? And if you have a large organization, imagine deciphering open text across 10,000, 20,000 responses in minutes and being able to get themes and clusters out of it. So that part will improve for sure. However, what AI cannot do is build trust in the system.
Right.
So the system is not capable of interpreting data, getting insights out of it, actioning it, and making visible change to the employees. Whether you use structure, whether you use conversation, whether you use AI, if that part is not done right, there will still be a failure. But if you're able to do that part well, I think AI will bridge the gap beautifully. It's an augmenting layer over the survey and the conversation that we can use.
Sure. Yeah. And you're saying that the trust building is going to take time, or it won't happen.
At this point, I want to be hopeful and say it will take time. I don't know that part yet. We'll have to wait and watch. Considering where we are today, I think it's a great augmented layer. You will still need humans to be able to understand the emotions behind all the things that we go through in life. To be able to get an agentic AI that will understand it exactly like how humans today understand it, we are still on that journey. I don't have an answer whether we'll reach there and when we will reach there.
Yeah. And therefore, Manoj, I'm guessing that what will happen is you will probably have one layer that can be dealt with like an agentic AI solution. But when it's kind of talking about slightly more severe experiences, stuff like that, where you need that whole emotional connect, trust, etc., to be established, that's when maybe we can, have a human kind of kick in and have that conversation. I think that would probably be the right kind of approach, to make the solution as holistic as possible. Right? Great. Thanks, Ashna.
Sorry,
Manoj, sorry.
Krish, I'll interrupt. This Sejal, I think, has put up a message saying questions will get rewarded. So there is a flurry of questions. So we definitely need to make sure that we have some time for it. But I'm picking up.
I just thought I'll kind of continue this with us so that we can just keep the rewards, Ashna. So we don't have to give it to anybody else. We will come there. Do you want to pick up a question, Ashna?
It's relevant to what I just said. So I'll pick that up. Priyadarshini is asking, can agentic AI truly understand emotional nuances, power dynamics, and fear in the workplace, or will human validation always be essential? So that's exactly what I said. Today, as it stands, I think human validation is important. We may risk oversimplifying or, undersimplifying the context, considering the journey where we are. So I think it's important. Have the insights through an agentic AI, validate it through human intervention. It will also help you with actions, etc. Build a cadence mechanism and implement. I think that's the hybrid model that we should take. Is it fully capable of understanding emotional nuances today? I would say the answer is no, Priyadarshini. I hope that answers your question.
Great. So, and I have a question that's probably connected to this. So, Manoj, I know you personally, and I know that you always, while obviously you're passionate about building products, I know that somewhere personally, you strongly believe in the whole experience bit and not just about the product features, right? As an individual. So, when it comes to capturing feedback, right? How do we ensure that, or is it even possible? Because now that we're talking about trust and all of that, is it possible that AI agents can learn business context and therefore maybe understand employee sentiment a little more, so that finally the responses, etc., are not just reduced to scores and dashboards, but actually it's more heartfelt, if you see what I mean.
Yeah.
Right? And it's probably an extension of what Ashna is talking also. So that how important business context, I think, is clear, but how do we ensure that these agents understand business context to the best possible way? And
See, AI is very similar to how human intelligence works. So it has to be fed in with data and information. So let's say if we want to get better context and better relevance for the surveys and the feedback and listening and everything around engagement, AI, one, it will try to take it from public information, which is available in the internet, but typically in organizational dynamics, the lot of information is private to the organization, which is residing in multiple systems like your HRIS, CRMs, your project management tools, and then multiple other things, like emails, etc. So to make a great model, it is important that you feed the AI engines with as much information as possible from multiple data points, and that is when it starts working beautifully, because it has the public data, historical context of the company, and then the in the flow context also, and then you can structure it well and give better answers. So yes, I mean, if you feed the engine with the right information, it will give you most of the times it will give you better output. But if you feed the engines with incomplete information or maybe wrong information, then the output also will be sometimes wrong. Yes.
Right. Is there a self-learning possible, or does it always have to be fed? Like, I know you did that comparison between human intelligence and AI, right? But I thought human intelligence also kind of somewhere don't we self-learn? I mean, it's not always something that fed. So does that also happen here? I mean,
Yeah, so it's the same. So even when humans self-run, right, they have to be seeded with that first information. So let's say if we talk about a child, and a child when he learns anything, there is some seeding which has happened for the first time from
right,
somewhere. So
right.
that seeding
Agree.
has to happen in AI as well. Some
Sure.
information has to be fed in.
Right.
Then the AI engines can start looking for similar semantics and those kind of information to kind of make the engine stronger.
Got it. Okay. No, cool. Thank you so much for that. So Ashna, do you want to take an audience question, or should I just
No, I
should I
will.
just
There's an interesting one, and again ties up with what we are talking. Who is accountable when an autonomous HR agent makes a decision that negatively impacts an employee's career or well-being? So, Akash, that's your question. I'll answer it, and Manoj, Malik, please add if you want to add anything to it. As of today, I think accountability still lies with the humans. We haven't reached a stage where accountability can be transferred to the AI agent. AI agent gives us the insights, gives us the clusters, gives us the cohorts, gives us the personalized experience that employees want. But actioning it, being responsible for the actions that are implemented, still lies with the humans. Now, that will be part of leadership team's accountability. Who in the organization will be best decided by an organization. But at least now we've not reached a stage where we can transfer accountability to an autonomous to an agentic AI. I
no?
hope that.
Yeah, and also I don't know if we want to.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, I'm not even sure if I want to transfer that accountability to an agentic AI. I'd rather it be with us as long as we stay accountable and display ownership, I guess. Yeah. But thanks. Yeah, that's an interesting question. So Malik, yeah, back to you again. Like when products are being built, I know that there's this constant I don't know if it's a debate, but there is how do you make it standardized versus how flexible should the product be, right? Because a lot of people would like flexibility allows personalization, greater insight, etc. But standardization will make sure that the analytics is cleaner, benchmarking is easier, stuff like that. So when we look at like AI based AI agentic based surveys, etc., and I'm sure that clients would probably want a lot of personalization, but I also understand the kind of challenges that personalization brings in when we're talking about analytics and dashboards and benchmarking and stuff like that. So according to you, right, what is the best approach to take to ensure that the client is happy, but at the same time the product is also effective?
I think you hinted like on the answer to a bit. So see, there are things that are must have for standardization, and there are things that standardization does not address also. So
Right.
in a way, I would say both of them have to be in the product, and it has to be designed in a way. The product has to be designed in a way that both of them are factored in. I think
Hmm.
Ashna mentioned it like, oh, you need uh, to know what are the metrics, and you also need to know why are these metrics, right?
Right.
There's a reasoning behind it. So the reasoning personalization brings out the reason, right? So if I'm designing the product for a customer of mine who is an HR who wants to run employee engagement surveys, or right, so she would that person would have to have a few things as a mandate, right? First is like she should get some kind of standard response which she can benchmark on, which she can
Right.
compare to the previous runs that she had. So you
Hmm.
cannot give her numbers and say that, oh, this is your number. But those
Hmm.
numbers in itself don't make sense if
Right.
there's no benchmarks around it, no patterns around it, right? So, and in order to do those, you need to have some standard questions. So there's no way of getting around
Sure.
standard questions. So
Yeah.
and I think this is, if I have to quote an example, let's say Gallup has the scutal questions, right? And in
Right.
their standardization, you can't even change those wordings that they use. So
Exactly.
they've done it for a very long time, and it was used globally. So everyone was following that standardization, and then like, oh, we'll benchmark it. They release those reports every year around that. So it becomes important to have standardization, because the person I am selling to, which is the HR persona, they would want this.
Correct.
Now, there's a case for personalization, and this is a new case because we are doing through an agentic AI. We are unlocking new capabilities, so they would want to take benefit out of it. So this is where the reasoning part comes in. Standardization fails in some things. For example, these standard questions might not be relevant for all the roles within the same organization. And let me talk about in industry wide.
Sure.
For example, a software engineer and maybe someone as a blue collar worker, they cannot be asked same questions if you are talking about standardization. And their perspective of, let's say, safety at workplace is a whole lot different. So for someone who's maybe, let's say, who's delivering goods
Right.
on the street, someone who's working in an office delivering software, safety is a whole different thing for them. If I ask safety question to both, they bring in different perspectives, but the scores
Right.
does not actually indicate how they feel about it. So this, how they feel about it becomes important, and that's where the personalization has to come in. So again, going back, the segmentation has to be there, the data has to be fed in, that what is the nature of the user, and so that the AI can actually smartly ask people like what are the things that matter to them, right? So for example, I'm going back to the same thing, right? Someone who's on the street delivering goods or meeting customers, his safety concern would be a much higher. So the agentic AI, like the agent should be able to smart enough to pick those and deep dive into it if they see any concern. And almost all the blue collar workforce or the frontline workforce that we talk of, safety is the one big thing that the HRs are concerned of.
Absolutely.
So that's so you have to have both in the system, and system has to be designed for it. And
Right.
so the agent also has to be trained to nudge people into those spaces, so that while you get those standard things that you can present to your board, you need to have personalization also.
Right. So from a like if I have to assign a weightage, would I be correct to assume 80% of it is standardized and 20% is customized to make it easier? Or can we even start looking at 50-50 from a product building? I'm talking about, when you build the product, or doesn't it matter at all?
No, it's based on the persona. A CEO or a management would more look towards standardization because they are looking at so many people together. Whereas when it comes to at a manager level of users,
Right.
it has to be personalization, because I'm, as a manager, I manage a team of
Oh,
10.
right.
I need to know at a greater detail because I don't have too many data points to look at. I can read through all those 10 people's feedback and or areas of concerns and maybe work on addressing them. So it's for function of scale rather than like talking about personalized,
Understood.
where at what percentage of it has to be personalized.
And the person who's going to be using it. But thank you so much. Cool.
But just
Ashna, before we
just wanted to
jump to the
add,
audience
sorry, I
question,
wanted to
right?
add
So
something.
I mean,
Krish, sorry, I wanted to add something to what Malik said. I think it's not this or that. It is the standard questions will give you a score. The personalized approach will give you a story behind the score. So if you're going to use that approach, I think both are equally important, because at the end of the day, to put in the required actions, which is the whole objective of why you're doing that whole survey or listening activity, it is important to get the story behind it. So it's very difficult to choose one over the other. I think it's equally important that we have the standard and the personalized approach integrated into it.
No, and through that, I think every time we provide a score, people want to know what the story is. and every time you provide the story, people would want to know what the score is. So I think that's
Exactly.
something that we've also kind of
We've faced
yeah,
that enough with our clients. So I guess
yeah,
you need both.
cool. So yeah, so Ashna, at AceNgage, I mean, listening is something that we're very passionate about. It's not like a tick in the box item. It's something that we stress upon when right from the time we hire, train, all of that. In a typical conversation that our counselors have with ex-employees or candidates or new hires, in that conversation, there's obviously listening becomes an integral part of the whole conversation. So the counselor will ask a question, the person will answer, the counselor listens to what that person is saying, then there's a follow-up question, so on and so forth. So the listening is an integral part, right? Now with agentic AI, from what we've seen, it essentially summarizes the question kind of immediately, right? Given that there will be an increased use of agentic AI for the survey kind of work that we do, how can HR ensure that that critical step of listening is not missed completely, right? How do you make sure that the agentic AI also listens? If that makes sense.
Yeah. So yeah, agentic AI is being used to do the listening part today, right? And I think it'll only get stronger and processes around
Right.
that will get strengthened. So we'll see more of that. I think the strength in the agentic AI listening is the way it summarizes and how it's able to, like I said, entire 10,000, 20,000 conversations at one go click of a button. Speed
The
is
scale.
speed is sexy, right? I mean, pardon the usage of the word, but you will
Yeah.
have everything that you want at a click of the button. But it is still important to layer that with the human listening that we are talking about. Agentic AI will tell you where you need to listen more. Agentic AI will tell you where you need to intervene more. So you spoke about it initially, where you spoke about over automation and dehumanization, right? We shouldn't let that happen. This part is important, but I think as you go along, it will be able to give you insights where HR is still able to listen, but more focused, more pointed, where you need to do the intervention. So that part will only be required more and more, and it's not going to go away. So do you need to do that with 10,000? The answer is no. You probably need to do that with 100 or 200, which really need that listening part of it. So some parts of listening happen through the agentic AI model that will only get strengthened, but there will still be a parallel listening channel that will have to be done to validate, verify, etc. Otherwise, we'll go back to what the question was, right? There could be labeling that happens, there could be decisions that are taken without actually verifying the details. So I think human decision on top
Right.
of that is still equally important as of today.
Sure. Right. And continuing on that, right? And I'm going to open up this question to Manoj and Malik also. When we are looking at, the whole feedback capture driven by, agentic AI, etc., there are two parts of things that become very important. And I think one of them, Manoj touched upon very early, was about how I need to have the confidence that the feedback that I'm giving, somebody's actually taking action against it, and that would give me the confidence to participate more in the survey. The second bit is this whole thing about anonymity, right? Because culturally, we are still not necessarily, and which is why the outsourced exit interview model works so well, because people still are more comfortable talking to a third party because they don't want to have a fear of retribution and things like that. So given that we have anonymity safeguards on one side and evidence that feedback leads to action on the other side, where do you think, which do you think will have a greater impact when you look at the final outcome that we're looking at? And Ashna, we can start with you and I'll go around the table, post which we
I,
can probably take some audience questions also.
I'll actually request Manoj and Malik to answer this, Krish, and then I will add to it because since we do this day in and day out, I think I have
Yeah.
both
So
sides.
Manoj, over to you in terms of anonymity safeguard versus feedback leading to action. Which do you think will have a greater impact on overall trust building as a whole?
Yeah. So I guess anonymity is overrated because we typically think that people want to be anonymous, but that would be
Right.
a very small percentage of the entire group, right? Because most of the times the feedback one is talking about are generic things, generic problem statements. Those are not very private, sensitive stuff.
Fair enough.
So
Yeah.
um, anonymity, I guess, so we discussed a couple of these things, that standardization versus personalization, etc., etc. So standard stuff will work uh, when it is anonymous or non-anonymous. It works everywhere. Whereas
Correct.
you get personalized when you really want to do anonymous, and that would be a very handful of the numbers, because the standardized would reduce your funnel, and then you talk to the
Sure.
anonymous guys in a personalized way. And I think the entire engagement industry, or whatever we are talking about today, uh, finally what matters is the action and the outcomes of whatever we are listening, because that is what matters to the person who is giving that feedback.
Right.
And that is something which none of the agents can do. The agents can facilitate that, but it has to be finally a human who has to get into action to get those things done. So I would say that I would optimize for action rather than optimize for anonymity whenever I
Sure.
design any survey. Yeah.
Perfect. Great. Malik, do you want to add something to this from a
Yeah.
product building standpoint?
So it's a yeah. We've seen. I mean, if I have to note on the evidences of how different organizations have done this, we've done it for a lot of organizations now. That
Sure.
there are fair number of organizations where they don't want it to be anonymous. So,
Right.
like, it's not something a taboo that okay, this service have to be anonymous. If it's not, then there's no honest feedback. So yeah, I agree to Manoj that like we
Yeah.
like overestimate the power of anonymity at some point. I would say like it's important that like in most some places where people are not really comfortable, and it's how the culture of the organization is built
That
around
is
over a
true.
period of
That
time.
is true. Yeah.
So it back factors. But if I mean it's not just like one size fits all. It's function of your culture. And if I had to advise someone on this, I would say that like you should drive towards building culture where employees feel
Feel
like
comfortable.
empowered and share their feedback without
Right.
the screen of anonymity.
Yeah. No, absolutely. In fact, while I let Ashna close, what we've seen is that when people want to talk about stuff around, unhappy about a particular process, policy, work-life balance, things like that, I think people don't mind the non-anonymity bit. But when it's about their respective managers, and which is unfortunately a huge problem, that people culturally still prefer it to be anonymous, because there is the whole ref check piece and all of that can work against them. So what we've seen is that when it's around feedback around their immediate managers, leadership, stuff like that, people prefer it to be anonymous. But when it's about other areas which are also equally important, about process, communication, stuff like that, people are okay for it to be non-anonymous. Ashna?
Yeah, I think all of you have covered everything that I wanted to say. The only additional point I wanted to put out is also with the Gen Z population, etc., getting to work, right? We've seen that more and more people are vocal and do not want to be anonymous. So that's also a trend that we are observing. But it is the stage of the organization that will decide, Krish, whether this is important or not. It is, again, not one size fits all. I think initially, if the culture is such, it's better to take the anonymous approach, give them the trust and the confidence, make 2 3
Right.
iterations of, we've heard you, we've listened to you, and this is what we've done, and then move to a non-anonymous sense of
Sure.
direction completely. I think it helps to use both the approaches to be able to get what you want at the end of the day.
Perfect. Good. Thank you so much. I think we've got 10 minutes, and I know we have like a rewards to be given, and we've got like an announcement to be made. So, Ashna, do you want to pick up a question from the
Yeah,
comments? Have you?
there are Yeah, there are 2-3 questions, but the flavor is the same. So Malik, over to you on this one. I'll read one, but I think there are 2-3 questions around the same flavor. Should employees be told how their feedback is being analyzed? There's another question that talks about, is there an ethical way to deal with to use agentic AI? There are questions around that. So what is the right way to do this? Or is there a right way to do this?
Yeah, so it's a standard process to disclose this information upfront. So now it's not just about the agentic AI being the face of it. So I mean, it's evident if agentic AI, like some AI agent is picking the feedback, right? So disclosures does not matter at that point because people know it already. But how the data is processed, to what level of data is processed, and to what level of decision making do you have AI involved in? So I think this is where it matters. So organizations have to be honest about this. That okay, this is how we are using it, and a lot of products in the market or a lot of services in the market, they actually disclose this information as a standard process.
Right.
And I think in the western part of the world, there are much stricter laws around this because each of this can have repercussions. Like someone asked, it might be a concern for an
Sure.
employee. So it's better to disclose always.
But do you see a resistance at this point? I mean, it's early days, but I'm just thinking that people would be more or probably less comfortable speaking to an agentic AI versus a human being. Are you seeing anything like that in terms of your own research, or is that not a problem anymore? And Manoj, you can also feel free to pitch in.
I think there can be both sides. So there are people who are not comfortable talking to a human, but they are
Right.
okay talking to an
Ah,
agent.
right.
So yeah. I mean, both
So
types
it's
of people exist. Yes,
got it. Okay.
I
Cool.
I
Yeah.
think,
Perfect.
I think people will be more comfortable talking to agents more than human. Uh,
Eventually, right? No, in fact, yeah. No. I
yes,
have a
yes,
friend who was telling me that she goes to a. I mean, she goes for therapy, and I was talking to her about how we're looking at agentic AI, conversational things, and all that. And interestingly, she told me that what, like when she sits back and thinks, though she goes to a therapist, and though it's very non-judgmental and all that, she somehow in her head she feels that the agentic AI will probably be more non-judgmental than a therapist, right?
yeah.
And I was like, oh wow, that's crazy, because I always thought that, like you said, no, I actually believe that maybe people would be less open to, would be more comfortable with humans. But I think more and more people are tilting towards what you are saying, Manoj. Cool. Ashna, any other thing?
I'll pick up one more and then I'll hand off to Manoj. Since we are talking so much about analysis, dashboard, surveys, listening, etc., there's a question that says, is over-analysis creating more noise than insights? Is this a challenge that we are seeing in the industry today, that there is so much being done that, we have more noise than insights?
Hmm.
Do you see that as a challenge? Is that something that you're...
Yeah, so if I have to go first on this, uh, paralysis of analysis is always a problem, and it is not just with AI, but it has been
With
there.
anything, yeah.
And in the last, say, 15 years, because of internet, etc., there is a data glut. So information overload and all those problems exist today. So, and that is increased multifold with agents. So I guess getting the survey and the responses and the analysis, etc., will be a commodity. And what will really matter is the action. That okay, you've done
Sure.
enough analysis. Now show me the action.
Show me the
Uh,
action. Correct.
Action and the outcomes will take precedence, and everything else will be kind of given that okay, this is something which is super simple.
Right. But you know what the threat over there, Manoj, is that unfortunately, and we've seen it here and there, right? I think I'm not sure if the agentic AI solutions can actually, because the actions still need to be done by people in organizations,
Yeah.
right? And I think that can be the challenge. So like while a lot of insights can be provided and all of that is something that we can do really well, agentic AI can do well, the actions still have to be implemented by somebody in the organization. And if there's lethargy or inertia to do that, this will always get blamed.
Yes.
And I don't know if you can solve that.
Yeah, so that
right?
that has to be largely solved by humans. I mean, that
Correct.
agents
Yeah.
can't do these things. Yeah,
Yeah.
agents can
And I
just
think that,
enable them with nudges,
yeah,
notifications, and all those things, but
correct.
real action has to be a human.
Yeah. And somewhere I see that as a threat increasingly. I mean, based on experiences that we have. But I mean, I think we've spoken a lot about the pros, the advantages. But Manoj, given your expertise in this area, right? What are the risks? Do you see any risks? I mean, one is the hype and all of that. I understand, but otherwise, all things considered, are there challenges that we are missing at this point that we could foresee in the near future with
The risks
increased use of
associated
AI?
are, yeah, so the risks are very similar to the risk of overall AI as an ecosystem,
Okay.
in
Okay.
terms of fake stuff and all. I mean, survey industry as such is not special to AI, but I mean the risk in anything to do with agents and AI are similar across industries. So
Okay.
those risks apply here. And I guess the rewards here are higher than the risk. So
They are
I
higher,
mean,
right? Okay.
I will, yes. So the rewards are much higher than the risks.
Sure.
As
Perfect.
long as you are having some human intervention in between, the risk can be mitigated.
Right. And the whole noise around data security, all of that is can be managed, is what you're saying. While even at this point, maybe not completely, but sooner or later, that is not necessarily a huge problem. The
Yeah, I
data
mean,
security is the threat.
AI is not doing anything special with your data as long as you are not very finicky about your data going to some AI engine, etc. But that way, our emails are also hosted on a server, and then that data is
Right.
anyways doing. So that ways,
Got
you
it.
will
Okay.
end up building everything yourself. So
Cool. No, no. But thank you very much. I think you summarized really well. I know we got 3 minutes. Manoj, I know that there's an announcement that you had to make. Obviously, we are very excited about it, but we'd like the audience to hear. Thank you very much, everyone. We really appreciate you being here. It's very sorry. I mean, it is an exciting subject, and you'd see that by the number of questions that we've got. We've tried to pick up and answer as many as we could. If we couldn't answer some of your questions, our sincere apologies. But thank you very much once again. We'll stay in touch. We do have rewards. Zozo Day has promised to kind of reward people with questions that we felt were exciting, insightful. And you'll hear more about that on LinkedIn. So stay tuned to the AceNgage and Zozo Day LinkedIn pages. But yeah, thank you very much once again. And Manoj, over to you.
yeah, thank you. Thanks, Krish and Asana, to put this together because this is a very relevant topic and very contextual. So
It is, yes.
thanks to you, and thanks to Shafia and the team at your side who has
Behind the
really
scenes,
been putting
yes.
this together.
Yes.
They
Yeah.
were the behind the scenes agents.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. So I know Krish and Ashana from a good number of years now. I think it has been almost like 6-7 years we know each other, and
Yeah.
we have been figuring out that how can we do something together and give better value to our customers. And this is what we have tried to do over these years, and that is the announcement I'm trying to make here. So Zozo Day, as a company, we are now official partners with AceNgage, and the idea is that uh, Zozo Day's technology around surveys and agentic surveys. How can we work with AceNgage and the clients of AceNgage, and then how can AceNgage focus more on the analytics and the actions, which are much more important than just the listening part of the survey. So we also have a lot of clients where, while we are a technology company and we stop after we do the survey, but that is when a lot of clients look for an intervention where somebody can help them to kind of really bring outcomes from the survey which was designed or which was executed, and which is where your company adds a lot of value. So I think this is a great partnership, a very symbiotic relationship, and end of the day, it will add a lot of value to the customers, and they will be able to unlock the value both from technology as well as from the consulting part and the actionables which will come from your side. So thanks, Krish, and thanks, Hassan, on this.
Yeah, absolutely. We're very excited. We will listen. You will reward. So I think it's an absolutely wonderful symbiotic relationship. We're very excited. Thank you so much. And Ashna, closing words.
Yes, thank you very much, Manoj, Malik, for being here. Looking forward to the collaboration. And like you said, I think together it will make a lot of value sense for our clients. And yeah, Agentic AI is here to stay. It'll only help us strengthen processes, listen more effectively, and more importantly, take the right actions from the insights that are provided. I think that's the focus that will continue to stay. Thanks, everybody. Thank you very much. Enjoy your weekend. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you so much, everyone. Bye.
Thanks, Krish.
Bye. Thanks, Malik. Thanks, Manoj. See you again. Bye.